Gregory, please.
Thank you, Chair. Much debate on the developer's request to reduce the number of affordable houses from 30% to 15%. As a consequence, the application was denied and held over for further discussions with the developers. However, the amount of affordable homes should be non-negotiable, and there are other issues at stake. This week, we have seen the devastation that flooding has caused in countries very near to us. We saw only last night areas in West Kent underwater. We have a real flood risk locally. There's been no mitigation of the flood risk that should happen if this plan would go ahead since the last planning committee meeting. Quite clearly, we can expect a greatly increased volume of surface water making its way into Tivoli Brook from rain falling on hard surfaces from the general household surface waste, which may contain chemicals. Any water containing chemicals and nitrates will inevitably make their way into Tivoli Brooks and therefore subsequently into Margate main sands via the outlet. Again, I must mention Southern Water's negligence, but also that water coming down from what was once fields that soaked up much rainwater, this cannot be absorbed by concrete. We heard yesterday of E. coli bacterium found in the coast locally. As this planning application could have a disastrous negative effect on the community, can TDC give the businesses dependent on tourism and the general public a cast iron guarantee that increased pollution into the sea will not result in the beach becoming unusable, and nothing less is acceptable? We hear today that TDC were in the High Court defending a development. One of the reasons Judge Timothy Corner quashed this at the judicial review was that TDC had produced an unsatisfactory habitat assessment. I haven't seen a habitat assessment from TDC regarding the Shottendane proposal, only one by concerned residents, which lists many plants, insects, larger animals, dormice, brown hares that call this area their home. This judicial review also found TDC...
Councillor Gregory, I don't like interrupting any member who's speaking, but please keep to this planning application. I do know where you're coming from, but we're talking about the Shottendane development. Thank you.
Well, this is about the Shottendane development.
Please carry on, but when you're bringing in other items which aren't really relevant for this application.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep it relevant. So, the judicial review has happened, and it found that TDC acted in a biased way and broke its own rules by deciding this application behind closed doors. Of great concern is a resident who submitted a Freedom of Information request regarding the proposed Shottendane development. They asked to be provided with notes and minutes of any meeting between the developer of this site, any TDC officer, or any member of the
Councillor Gregory, please, you're quoting other items once again.
This is to do with this application. It's to do with Shottendane.
I'm going to ask our solicitor please to come in. I do not like stopping people. You have every right to speak, but it's got to be kept to this application. I do understand what you're trying to say, but I'm bringing in our solicitor at the moment.
Well, then it'll have to go unsaid.
Yes, I've had advice here, and I'm going to carry on, Councillor Gregory, and then I'm going to ask our Chief Solicitor to come in just to have a word. Thank you.
Okay.
Just put it across a little bit towards your mouth.
The response my resident got in response to this application for a Freedom of Information request to do with the proposed Shottendane development was as follows. TDC confirmed that they hold the information that was requested, but were exempt from answering. As councillors, we have a duty to represent and work in the best interests of residents. They trusted us with their vote and trust us to do the right thing for them, their standard of living, their environment, for the betterment of Thanet, and not to please outside bodies who threaten that which they hold dear. It is incumbent on elected members to think of the electorate and not to blight their lives by this devastation of the environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gregory. Estelle.
Thanks very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Councillor Gregory. I just want to address the point that's been raised, well, 2 points really. One about the recent result of the JR at the school at Leyland Gap. People bring JRs all the time. So people bring JRs against planning decisions all the time. It's an issue of a point of law, so it's a decision by the High Court on, you know, how it's been decided. It's a point of law thing. It's not relevant to the application before you tonight. So the application before you tonight is clear on the papers. You know, the evidence is there, and it's for members to decide that based on the evidence, not based on what's happened in a JR matter to do with a different matter that has all sorts of different issues that aren't relevant to this consideration. So that's the first point. And the second point about FOIs, you know, we have a duty to deal with FOIs, and FOIs are dealt with under their own body of legislation. Again, what is raised in an FOI request is not relevant to the consideration of the application tonight. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Speaking as